Testimony today. You know, sometimes we get caught in a trap of overemphasizing or over-accentuating one aspect of a business decision, one factor. In this morning, it's going to be about this tax cut bill. But we all know that there are multiple factors that go into the expansion or contraction of businesses every day in our economy. As an example, Harley-Davidson recently announced, one of the iconic companies in Wisconsin, they're going to be shutting down a plant, laying off 800 workers, not because they felt they were undertaxed or overtaxed, but because they're moving the factory to Thailand because of our inability to move forward on the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And the only way for them now to gain access to that market where they need to be to stay competitive is to move the entire operation overseas. I'm hearing from businesses large and small throughout my rural western Wisconsin district how scared they are with a huge increase in steel and aluminum prices right now, or the fact that we may be losing market access in Mexico because of a potential withdrawal from the NAFTA trade agreement. These are just some of the examples that businesses have to wrestle with in the day-to-day affairs. There was one, however, predictable consequence of this tax legislation, and that is over 80% of the corporate tax cut is going back not into employee salaries or bonuses, but in share buybacks, in dividend distribution, downloading corporate debt, executive salaries. Why was it predictable? Because it's exactly what corporate America told us that they were going to do. And if history was any guide, it's exactly what they had done in previous tax cut measures that benefited corporate America. But one of the hidden dangers, Mr. Ratner, let me ask you, is the unsustainable debt that we are running up on future generations today, and in no small part due to the recently enacted tax cut bill. The Congressional Budget Office has recalculated and estimated close to $2 trillion of new debt over the next 10 years. And unlike the '81 tax cut or even the 2001 or 2003 Bush tax cuts, I said at the time that we weren't in a position to make a huge fiscal mistake today because of 70 million baby boomers who are beginning their retirement, 10,000 a day, joining Social Security and Medicare. You start racking up this debt from this tax cut and also over $500 billion with the new budget that they just passed this year. And this becomes very unsustainable and dangerous, I think, economically. Do you have some thoughts about this, Mr. Ratner, as far as the potential impact of this debt on future GDP growth and job growth in our country?
Yes, Congressman. I think I've spoken to this a bit briefly, but I'll say it again. First, I think the cost of this tax bill, if you assume that the provisions that are supposed to expire get extended, which is what usually happens, as we all know, those expiration dates were put in to fit inside the budget resolution. And if you count the interest on the debt that is going to be incurred along the way, the total cost of this bill, according to the CBO, gets up to close to $2.7 trillion. So it's a lot of money. And as I said earlier, if you look at our projected deficit next year of $1 trillion, 55% of that relates to 3 pieces of legislation passed by Congress in the last 3 years: the tax bill, the spending bill, and then the bill, I think, in 2015 or 16 to deal with the various, the doc fix and the various tax extenders and other gimmicks that were inside of it. And as I said earlier, and I think everybody probably on this side of the room would agree in this panel, this is not a good place for America to be. Adding this kind of debt year after year in a time of relative economic strength, where we're not in a recession, is dangerous both for the health of the economy now as well as what it does to future generations.
Yeah, I'm very worried about where we're heading with this debt. Not only the unsustainable pace, but the pressure it's going to put on the Fed to start increasing rates again, and that's going to act as a brake on economic activity. But one of the saving graces that we've had in this place in recent years, not due to anything that we've done policy-wise, has been the incredibly low interest rate charges on our national debt, which are about to skyrocket over the next 10 years. And soon, within the next 10 years, just interest payments on our national debt is going to overwhelm all defense spending that we have in the federal budget. And that's not going to put us in a very good place when it comes to other investments that we have to be making in the future of our country. But typically, expansions and growth gets cut when interest rates start going up. And one of the great fears that I have right now is the Federal Reserve's reaction to all this and the built-up pressure that's going to come. Because as you had testified earlier, Mr. Ratner, there's very little evidence that this tax cut is leading to the type of economic boom, let alone any sense of paying for the huge expense that comes with it. I want to thank you all for testifying here today. I yield back.